Throughout your life as a man, you are going to get beta tested, and you absolutely cannot tolerate that. And in the overwhelming majority of cases, you can nip this beta testing in the bud by simply not smiling. You can stop it right in its tracks by simply not smiling. Now, this isn't always going to work, but in the overwhelming majority of cases, it's going to solve the problem because people beta test gradually. People test to see if you're beta little by little. And you can usually nip it in the bud by simply not smiling when somebody says something disrespectful to you. I'm not trying to say don't smile at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. You should be smiling and enjoying your life outside all the time. I'm specifically talking about when somebody beta tests you. It is going to, if you're a beta, it's going to be in your instinct, and you'll probably know that you do this shit all the time, that if somebody says something disrespectful to you, like a little joke, that you're gonna laugh along, sheepish smile, you know. You need to resist that urge because that is beta. That is a failed beta test. You see what's going on. Somebody first starts off by testing you with a slightly indirectly ambiguous, disrespectful joke. That's how small it starts. But you can nip it in the bud by not laughing along. You will live so much better when you acknowledge what true disrespect is, even if it comes from a friend. When you acknowledge true disrespect and you just don't smile and you just look at them, you're going to get the reaction, what? You can't take a joke? You can't take a joke? Never fear that. Never fear being told that you can't take a joke because it's a trap. It's just a trap. Embrace not being able to take a joke because you're intelligent enough to know the difference between what a joke is and what beta testing is. There is a difference. And if you're not completely retarded, you will be able to tell the difference. I'm retarded, but I can still tell the difference when somebody's beta testing or when it's just a casual, lighthearted joke. There is a difference, and you should be able to tell. And you'll be able to tell through a feeling in your gut. You get this feeling, and I don't know if this is just me. Maybe it's a mostly genetic thing or not, but I get this feeling in myself when I get beta tested where I immediately want to nip it in the bud. It just feels so unnatural to me. It feels something like Primal in me kind of switches. And the primary reason I feel it's genetic, at least for myself, is because of my childhood, before I knew how to act or whatever, and also my uncles that I've heard stories of. And so I want to address that in a little bit. I'll go into some personal stories, but first, I just wanted to explain this theoretically. And maybe you don't share these same genetic traits as me, but you can force yourself to behave this way, even if it feels a little bit unnatural, because I think you're going to live a much better quality of life if you try to nip the beta testing in the bud. And again, it starts with an indirect joke, like something that seems, nothing too crazy, a little harmless joke, but they're testing to see if you're beta or not, to see if they could get away with it. And then they start upping the stakes little by little. Starts then things like touching you, like maybe, rubbing on your neck or like shaking you or something. I'll tell a story in a little bit of a situation I was in recently, but this is beta testing, and the more you keep letting somebody get away without stopping it in its tracks, the more problematic it's going to eventually be to deal with. So that's why you should nip it in the bud immediately and be okay with being told, like, oh, you can't take a joke. That is a much better quality of life for me. I rather be the person who, when somebody says something that I can tell is not a joke, but is more beta testing, that people know in my circle that I can't take a joke. I much rather prefer that. That gives me so much more peace. I sleep so much better at night when I nip these things in the bud. And so if you don't nip them in the bud right away, they can escalate a little farther. So I'll share some stories from my childhood, one more recently, and also some stories about my uncle, just so you can better comprehend what I mean by nipping it in the bud and what happens when you don't nip it in the bud, and why I think this is just something genetic in myself that I think I've figured out. Like, I haven't had to train myself to be like this. It's just something primal within me. And this was before I learned how to fight. I fight Muay Thai now. I've had one fight so far, but this was well before I had any fight experience. And my uncles also did not have fight experience anyway. So when I was younger, some friends came over after a dinner out together, and one friend had brought his cousin along. And the cousin, because I was around like 12 years old, he was a little older than me, I think. He was a little bit bigger than me, slightly more developed than me. He was making jokes at me, and they were progressively getting more and more disrespectful. And I didn't, at the dinners, check him. I didn't, say anything. And I felt if I had not laughed along in those initial stages, I probably could have avoided what ended up happening. But I don't care. I'm happy with what ended up happening. It was pretty funny, actually. So we went over to my house afterwards. We were playing on, I think it was Xbox 360 at the time. We were playing Black Ops 1, like when it first came out. And he said one comment that was just like the final trigger. And it wasn't because it hurt my feelings. You have to understand. It's a big difference. Like, this comment didn't mean anything to me. But it was the fact that he had willingness to say the comment. It was the fact that he felt he could get away with saying the comment, which felt like it felt like a beta test. Like, I felt like he was trying to be dominant. And something primal in me just flipped at that moment. I got up from playing the video game and I tried to tackle him, but because he was much bigger than me, I failed. So I backed up and I gave him a big hook without proper form to the jaw, and he fell to the ground, started crying. That was the first fight I was ever in, but it was one punch and done. And I had a lot of adrenaline afterwards, but I felt really good. He was crying on the ground, and I'm not somebody who enjoys hurting innocent people at all. But this was not an innocent person. This was somebody who was disrespecting me. And so I felt really good afterwards. Like, it felt very, like I put him in his place, like that, something about that. It just felt so relieving. Slept like a baby that night, didn't care. He also apologized to me afterwards. I didn't apologize for hitting him, but he apologized to me afterwards. And I met him a couple years later, and he was like completely respectful and cool. So I haven't seen him again, but I guess we're on good terms after that. Another situation I was in, maybe a year later or so, I was playing Manhunt in a pool with my best friend. We were on a vacation in Atlantic City, and some kids had mistook me for somebody else. They thought I was some other kid that they came across with at the resort that they had already been picking on and already perceived as a beta, I guess. I'd never met these kids in my life, but they came up to me and they started making fun of me, and one of them, like, touched me, and as soon as he did that, like, I instinctually, I had this feeling, like, what was going on, and I jumped out of the water and I punched him in the face too, and he started crying. And then nothing else happened. His friends didn't attack me either. Got away with the assault, I guess you could say. I mean, I was a kid. Went to the pool room. He came up to me later and apologized. My friend saw the whole thing. He loves to tell the story. But this was just something that was like instinctual in me. And this was before I learned how to fight. It's just, I don't know, can any of you guys relate to this? This like internal instinct and reflex when you feel like somebody is like trying to dominate you or like be alpha to you and beta size or like emasculate you. You get this like internal gut feeling that it just doesn't feel right, and so your body just goes into like a survival mode and like attack. Because these are cases where I assaulted the other person. And more recently, a situation I got into which I handled a lot better than I did then because I didn't punch him right away. But somebody, a friend of mine actually, kept trying to touch my shirt, and he touched it like 3 times, and because he's my friend, I was smiling along, allowing it to happen. I'm like, okay, all right, you could stop now. And finally, the 3rd time, I was like, cut it out. Like, that's enough. And he said, what? What are you going to do? And something about that just like flipped a switch. Like, I didn't even have to think about it at all. I just smacked him in the face, and I got up, and I offered him the fight. And this wasn't like some emotional thing. Like, it wasn't like I felt insulted by it or like something he said made me emotional. It was just like a purely primal thing, like an instinct. And I'm very curious to know if you guys ever feel this when you feel like you're being beta tested. Do you guys get like that internal feeling in your stomach where you feel like something's not right? Like somebody's trying to dominate you or emasculate you and you just don't allow it to happen? Or is this just me? Because I feel it is mostly genetic, but I'd have to think that there's plenty of other men out there that are like this. I think it probably could be related to testosterone too, which also is tied to your genetics. But my uncles always had similar situations as well. I know one time when my uncle was young, some kids were making fun of him on a school bus. They were making fun of his lunchbox, and he got up and he punched them in the face when they were like maybe 10 years old or 11 years old or something. This is some stories my mom would tell me. Another one was when he was much older, maybe in his 20s or so. He went to a hockey game, and the mascots, the mascots could get a little touchy and aggressive sometimes. The mascot was touching him, I guess in a way he felt uncomfortable, didn't like. So he punched the mascot in the face, and the guy like fell down all the steps. My uncle didn't face any charges for it, but it was pretty much assault because the mascot wasn't like threatening him or hurting him really, but it was like a similar thing, It's like when the mascot is being aggressive or rough with you, even though it's like having fun, it's supposed to be fun, it's like beta testing. And my uncle just was not having that. So he just socked him in the face and the guy went down the steps. And so I'm just curious to know if like any of you guys know what I'm talking about with this beta testing thing and how it doesn't matter what the person says. Like they could make fun of you for something that your friends make fun of you for casually and like you don't care. Like that's actually a joke. It's not beta testing. It doesn't hurt you at all. But just the fact that they're trying to do it and they're trying to beta test you, it ignites something in you. Can any of you guys relate to this? I don't know. I'm very curious. But my advice on it is because my general advice is to always live true to your biology. If you are naturally like this, I say absolutely embrace it. Because every single time I've assaulted somebody in a situation like this, I always sleep like a baby. I always feel better. And I sense that a lot of you guys who've been in these situations and have not assaulted the other person probably go home feeling absolutely restless and like wishing you did something. And that kind of turmoil could linger with you for months, maybe even years. So I encourage you to take risks occasionally of just putting people in their place, checking them. Like now as an adult, I slapped someone instead of closing my fist, trying to really hurt them and then offering them to fight. I think that's the better way to go about it. But yeah, like I think try to nip it in the bud, by not laughing along with these jokes. Don't like sheepishly laugh along when someone beta tests you. But if it keeps escalating, don't be afraid to take a risk of going to jail and slapping them in the face. Because you'll probably, in most cases, not go to jail. That's crazy to say on YouTube, I know.